History tells us that on the 15th of March, 44 BC, the most powerful man in the world bled to death on the cold marble floor of the theater of Pompey. 23 dagger wounds, a betrayal by his closest friends, the end of an era. But what if I told you that every single detail of that day, the warnings from the soothsayer, the tears of Calpurnia, and even the blood on the floor, was a masterpiece of deception? What if the man who conquered Gaul and outmaneuvered every political mind in Rome didn't fall victim to a clumsy conspiracy, but instead authored it? There is a shadow that stretches from the ruins of the Roman Forum deep into the shifting sands of the Sahara Desert. A shadow that suggests Julius Caesar didn't die. He vanished, and he didn't go alone. He took with him the greatest minds of the Library of Alexandria, the gold of the Ptolemies, and a secret knowledge that was never meant for the eyes of the masses. Tonight, we are going to look past the myths of the Senate and the poems of Shakespeare. We are going to follow a trail of missing gold, phantom legions, and strange, high-tech anomalies buried under the African dunes. You are about to discover the story of the Second Rome, a civilization built in total silence, governed by a man who became a ghost to become a god. The Ides of March wasn't an assassination, it was an extraction. To understand how a man could fake his own death in front of dozens of witnesses, you have to understand the Rome of 44 BC. It was a city of whispers. Julius Caesar had reached the absolute ceiling of human power. He was dictator perpetuo, dictator for life. He had the army, the money, and the worship of the common people. But Caesar was a man obsessed with legacy and time. He had spent years in Egypt, not just in the arms of Cleopatra, but in the deepest, most restricted vaults of the Great Library. Historians often gloss over this, but Caesar was fascinated by the Aeterna Scientia, the eternal science. He studied the stars, restructured the entire calendar, and spoke of a world that existed long before the founding of Rome. By the time he returned from Egypt, something in him had changed. He began to treat the Roman Senate with an indifference that bordered on contempt. He wasn't just bored with politics, he seemed to be looking past them. Imagine being the master of the known world, only to realize that the world you've conquered is nothing compared to the secrets you've found in the scrolls of the Nile. Caesar knew that Rome was a dying project. It was a cycle of civil wars, corruption, and inevitable collapse. He didn't want to save Rome. He wanted to transcend it. And for that to happen, Julius Caesar had to die. But a man like that doesn't just retire. He needs a distraction so violent, so shocking, that no one would ever think to look for him again. The stage was set. The actors, Brutus, Cassius, and the rest, were already holding their daggers. But they weren't the directors of this play. They were the puppets. And the first clue that something was wrong lies in the one thing Caesar did just days before the murder. Something that made absolutely no sense for a man afraid of his enemies. The murder of Julius Caesar is perhaps the most documented event in antiquity. And yet, when you look closer, the official story starts to dissolve. Think about this. Caesar was a military genius. He had spent his life reading battlefields, spotting ambushes before they happened, and surviving against impossible odds in Gaul and Egypt. Yet, in the weeks leading up to the Ides of March, he did something completely out of character. He dismissed his Spanish bodyguard. These were elite, battle-hardened warriors who were fanatically loyal to him. He sent them away, leaving himself completely exposed in a city crawling with enemies. Why would the most cautious commander in history walk into a trap with his eyes wide open? And then, there is the matter of the medical report. Antistius, the only physician allowed to examine Caesar's body, claimed that out of the 23 stab wounds, only one was actually fatal. One. In a frenzy of dozens of senators, most of whom were trained soldiers, how could they be so imprecise? Unless, of course, the blood on the floor wasn't Caesar's at all. Historians have long puzzled over the epileptic fits Caesar began to suffer from in his final years. But if you look at the private records of the Temple of Serapis in Egypt, they describe similar symptoms not as a disease, but as a preparation. A series of treatments using rare botanical compounds that could induce a state of suspended animation, a death-like trance that could fool even the most observant witnesses. But the strangest piece of evidence isn't found in Rome. It's found in the accounting ledgers of the Roman treasury. In the chaotic months following the assassination, Mark Antony discovered that a massive portion of the state's gold reserves, specifically the sacred treasure kept for extreme emergencies, had simply vanished. No records of spending, no massive military campaigns, just empty vaults. Where does a dictator send enough gold to buy an empire right before he is supposed to die? The answer lay far to the south, beyond the borders of the known world, where Roman maps simply ended and the terra incognita began. What if the Ides of March was not a tragedy, but the greatest vanishing act in human history? Consider this possibility. Caesar didn't just want to rule Rome, he wanted to survive it. He had seen the collapse of the Republic coming for decades. He knew that even if he stayed, he would spend the rest of his life fighting off daggers in the dark. So, he made a deal. Using the forbidden archives he secured in Alexandria, Caesar discovered something the pharaohs had kept hidden for millennia. Deep within the Sahara, protected by a sea of shifting sand and lethal heat, there existed an anchor point, a location where the Earth's energies allowed for a different kind of civilization. A place where the eternal science could be practiced without the interference of bickering senators or the ignorance of the Roman mob. The plan was elegant in its brutality. He allowed the conspirators to think they were saving the Republic. He used a body double, perhaps a loyal veteran or a political prisoner altered by Egyptian surgeons, to take the falls in the theater of Pompey. While Rome burned in the civil wars that followed, a ghost legion of Caesar's most trusted engineers, architects, and scholars was already moving across the Mediterranean. They weren't carrying weapons. They were carrying scrolls, seeds, and the stolen gold of the Republic. They were heading for the Tibesti Mountains, a place so remote that even today, modern satellites struggle to map its deepest cavern systems. This was the birth of the Second Rome, a hidden technocracy built on the foundations of lost Atlantean knowledge, where Julius Caesar would reign not as a dictator, but as the first architect of a new world. But a project of this scale leaves footprints, and those footprints are still visible today, if you know where to look. History has a way of leaving echoes in the most unexpected places. If Caesar truly staged his death to build a hidden empire, he would have needed a location that was naturally fortified, invisible to the world, and yet rich in resources. And this is where our story crosses the Mediterranean. Deep in the heart of the Sahara Desert, in what is now modern-day Libya and Chad, lived a mysterious people known as the Garamantes. To the Romans, they were just barbarians of the sand. But recent archaeological excavations have revealed something impossible. The Garamantes possessed a highly sophisticated underground irrigation system, the Foggara, that allowed them to farm in a wasteland where nothing should grow. Where did a nomadic desert tribe learn advanced Roman hydraulic engineering, decades before the Romans officially conquered the region? The answer might lie in the lost oasis of Ammon. Ancient Egyptian texts, which Caesar studied intensely in Alexandria, spoke of a mirror city buried beneath the Tibesti Mountains, a city built by the followers of Horus who fled the surface world during the Great Cataclysm. Imagine Julius Caesar, not as a dying old man, but as an explorer, standing before a massive pre-Diluvian gate carved into the dark volcanic rock of the African interior. He didn't just find a place to hide, he found a technology that made the Roman short sword look like a primitive toy. And here is the most chilling part. In several remote caves throughout the Sahara, archaeologists have found rock art that depicts men in Roman tunics, standing next to tall, slender figures with elongated heads and eyes that glow like polished obsidian. The locals call them the Sky Lords of the Sand, but we might call them Caesar's new mentors. The conspiracy wasn't just about escaping a group of angry senators. It was about joining an alliance that had been watching humanity from the shadows for thousands of years. And the bridge between Rome and this hidden world was a single, terrifying discovery. The moment that changed everything happened in the spring of 47 BC. While Caesar was in Egypt, he took a small, private excursion to the Temple of Siwa, the same place where Alexander the Great was once told he was a god. What Caesar found there was never written down in his official commentaries, but his private physician noted that when Caesar returned, his hair had turned prematurely gray, and he refused to sleep in a room with a closed door for the rest of his life. He had seen the Chronos Mirror, a device left behind by a civilization that preceded even the Egyptians, which allowed a person to see the inevitable collapse of their own timeline. Caesar didn't just see his death in the Senate. He saw the fall of Rome. He saw the Dark Ages. He saw the rise of the Inquisition, the World Wars, and the ultimate extinction of the Roman spirit. In that moment, the great game of politics died for him. He realized that if he stayed in Rome, he would only be a footnote in a tragedy. But if he died and moved his people to the Mirror City in the Sahara, he could become the guardian of human knowledge, the silent architect who would guide the world through the darkness. The turning point was a choice: stay and die as a man, or vanish and live as the director of history. He chose the shadow. But to keep the secret, he had to ensure that no one, not even his closest allies, would ever follow his trail. He had to erase his own footsteps from the face of the earth. And that meant the assassination had to be the most convincing bloodbath in history. What did Caesar and his ghost legion actually build beneath the sands? What did Caesar and his ghost legion actually find beneath the weight of the world? If you were to walk through those halls today, you wouldn't find the stench and the filth of the Roman streets. The air is different here. It is cool. It is heavy with the scent of ozone and wet stone, like the air right before a summer storm. The light doesn't come from flickering torches or smoky oil lamps. Instead, the very walls seem to breathe a soft, rhythmic glow, a pale blue pulse that feels less like fire and more like moonlight trapped in glass. The men who entered these mountains as broken soldiers, scarred from the wars in Gaul, underwent a change. Their gray hair darkened. Their trembling hands became steady. The deep, jagged lines of age and battle simply faded. They walked with the strength of men half their age. No one recorded how. No one dared to ask. And then there are the archives, not scrolls of dry parchment that crumble at a touch. Thousands of dark, heavy cylinders are stacked in the silence. When the light hits them, they hum, a low, vibrating frequency that you feel in your teeth. These aren't books. They are memories. Every word ever spoken by the lost poets, every map of the stars before the sky shifted, every secret the pharaohs took to their graves, it's all there, frozen in stone, waiting. It is a world of perfect, terrifying order, a city that never sleeps but never makes a sound. The silence surrounding this place isn't an accident of history. It is a wall. Think of the explorers who pushed too far into the empty quarters of the map. In the 1800s, a French officer wandered back from the deep dunes with eyes that looked like they had seen the sun from too close. He didn't talk about gold. He didn't talk about land. He whispered about white robes that never got dirty. He spoke of heavy, metallic birds that rose from the sand without a single beat of their wings. They called him a madman. They locked him in a dark room and burned his journals. But the journals weren't burned because they were crazy. They were burned because they were true. There are people in our world whose only job is to keep the desert empty. They are the ones who fund the excavations that find nothing but broken pots and old bones. They are the ones who turn the satellite cameras away when the shifting sands reveal a geometry that is too perfect, too deliberate, to be a trick of the wind. Why? Because the truth would break us. If we knew that a perfect society had been living beneath us for 2,000 years, watching us struggle, watching us bleed, watching us die in the mud, our world would end in a single day. The secret isn't kept to protect Caesar. It is kept to protect the lie we call modern life. We were told the ancients were primitive. We were told we are the pinnacle of history. But sometimes, when the wind blows from the south, it carries the smell of cold stone and ancient power. And for a moment, the lie feels very, very thin. The wall is starting to crack, and what's behind it is coming for the light. You might think that a hidden civilization in the Sahara would have no impact on your life today. But look closer at the world around you. Why is it that every time a major technological leap occurs, from the Renaissance to the Industrial Revolution, it seems to happen in a sudden, unexplained burst of inspiration? There is a theory among fringe historians that the Second Rome has been seeding our society for 2,000 years. They are the silent observers. Whenever humanity gets too close to destroying itself, or whenever we are ready for a small step forward, a piece of ancient knowledge is leaked into our collective consciousness. Think about the mysterious Voynich manuscript, or the sketches of Leonardo da Vinci. Where did these ideas come from? Even more unsettling is the modern phenomenon of phantom signals coming from the heart of the African continent. Global telecommunications companies have long dealt with high-frequency bursts that originate from the uninhabited parts of the Tibesti Mountains. These signals are encrypted using a mathematical cipher based on the golden ratio, the same ratio Caesar used to design his temples. But it's not just technology, it's power. Consider the Council of 12 that secretly influences global finance. If you look at their lineage, if you trace their families back through the centuries, you eventually hit a wall in the early Middle Ages. A wall that points directly back to the families who disappeared from Rome shortly after the Ides of March. The Roman ghost didn't just hide, he integrated. Caesar's descendants may not be wearing togas, but they are still the architects of our reality. They are the ones who decide which energy sources we use, which wars are fought, and what history books are allowed to teach your children. The Ides of March didn't kill a man. It birthed a shadow government that has never let go of the reins. We are left with a choice. We can believe the textbooks that say a great man died a pathetic death in a marble hallway. Or we can look at the anomalies, the missing gold, the high-tech irrigation in the desert, and the strange, lingering influence of Roman logic in our digital age. If Caesar is still out there, or if the civilization he founded still thrives beneath the sands, what are they waiting for? If they possess the eternal science, why haven't they shared it? Perhaps they are waiting for us to prove we are no longer the Roman mob that would kill a leader for a few coins. Or perhaps they aren't waiting for us at all. Perhaps we are just a long-term experiment, a distraction to keep the rest of the world busy while the true heirs of Rome prepare for something far greater than global conquest. Ask yourself, the next time you look at a map of the Sahara and see nothing but empty sand, are you seeing a desert, or are you seeing a roof? This has been a long journey, from the daggers of the Senate to the silent halls of a hidden empire. If you've stayed with me until now, thank you. You are the kind of explorer this channel was built for. The story of Julius Caesar is far from over, and perhaps the most important chapters haven't even been discovered yet. I want to hear from you in the comments. If you had the chance to leave this world behind and join Caesar's hidden civilization, knowing you could never return, would you take it? Let me know your thoughts. Until next time, keep looking for the truth in the shadows. This is the forgotten knowledge, and the mystery is only beginning.